Welcome to the Walk with Jesus channel. I want you to start by taking a deep breath and just completely transporting yourself back in time for a second. Imagine you're sitting on a grassy, sun-drenched hillside in 1st century Galilee. A gentle breeze is blowing, and right at the center of this hushed, gathered crowd sits Jesus. He's teaching, and his words are literally carrying across the landscape, fundamentally shifting how humanity understands faith, obedience, and the heart. Today, in this explainer, we're going to explore some of the most powerful and enduring principles from that exact moment in history. Section 1, the Hillside Sermon. This wasn't just some casual speech, it was a profoundly historic moment. The audience listening to Jesus wasn't sitting in a grand echoing cathedral. They were just everyday people. We're talking farmers, fishermen, builders. And Jesus knew exactly how to reach them. He delivered his most profound, world-changing lessons using the familiar, everyday language of agriculture and nature. By speaking of seeds and soil and rain, he made these really complex spiritual truths incredibly accessible and grounded in reality. Section 2, Beware False Prophets. Okay, let's dive into this. Right within this beautiful sermon, Jesus transitioned into a very pressing danger. Look at this incredible quote from Matthew chapter 7. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. This perfectly highlights the stark contrast between harmless appearances and destructive intentions. Think about it. A wolf is terrifying precisely because it looks safe and mimics the flock. Jesus makes it absolutely clear that outward appearances can be dangerously deceiving. Which naturally leads us to a pretty crucial question. How do we actually tell the true from the false? If words can be faked, and if appearances can be so meticulously deceiving, how on earth do we authenticate a messenger or recognize a genuine disciple? Section 3, the test of fruits. Well, Jesus didn't just leave his followers with a warning, he introduced the ultimate test for authenticity. Now, what's really interesting about this is the absolute duality of nature that he uses. Think of it like this. On one side, a good tree naturally produces good fruit. On the other side, a corrupt tree produces evil fruit. You just don't gather grapes from thorn bushes, and you definitely don't pick figs from thistles. The fundamental nature of the tree always dictates what grows on its branches. And this all culminates in this definitive statement from Matthew 7, verse 20, "Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them." This is a profound shift in how we evaluate truth. Teachings, leaders, and even ourselves as disciples are ultimately judged by the character and the actions we produce over time, not by our public claims, not by our charisma, and certainly not by our rhetoric. Section 4, Words versus Actions. There is a massive, fundamental difference between empty talk and genuine action. Look at this somewhat chilling warning from Jesus. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father. Just knowing the correct password or loudly professing your loyalty, that isn't enough. Actual lived obedience is required. Enthusiastic words are entirely insufficient if they aren't backed up by actually doing the will of the Father. So here we contrast two very different approaches to faith. On one side, you have profession, relying on words, outward claims, or even performing these outward wonders and loud demonstrations of faith, but without any real inward cleansing. And on the other side is practice, the quiet actions and inward character of those who humbly and faithfully live righteously. True faith must always, always manifest itself in faithfulness. To further illustrate this, Jesus told the parable of the two builders from Luke chapter 6. The wise builder represents the person who hears the teachings and actually does them. This person digs deep. They lay a solid foundation on a rock. So when the inevitable floods and storms of life hit, that house stands firm. The foolish builder, however, just hears the words but doesn't act on them. That house is built on the earth without a foundation, and when the stream beats against it, the ruin of that house is great. Mere hearing leads to ruin, but action builds real endurance. Section 5, Cultivating Good Fruit. So, what does this good fruit actually look like in practice? Well, good fruit is not just a tally of good deeds you check off a list at the end of the day. It's much deeper than that. It is a unified expression of spirit-formed character. It demonstrates not merely what a person does, but what a person has actually become through faith and grace. It's a total transformation of character that changes our motives, our desires, and our very hearts. And this brilliantly illustrates how the Apostle Paul later described it. Notice, he didn't speak of the fruits of the Spirit, plural. He called it the fruit of the Spirit, singular. Imagine an orange rather than a whole cornucopia of assorted fruits. An orange has many segments, right? But they are all interconnected within a single piece of fruit. These virtues act as an integrated whole rather than a menu of optional qualities you can just pick and choose from based on your mood. Here are the specific segments of that good fruit growing in a sincere disciple: charity, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. Practically speaking, this looks like everyday honesty in your dealings and quiet, selfless service to your neighbors. These virtues aren't forced, they grow naturally out of a spirit-directed life and a sincere, genuine care for others.
Section 6. The Principle Today.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our modern lives. How do we take an ancient teaching delivered on a Galilean hillside and actually apply it today? Well, it breaks down into practical steps for authentic discipleship. First, you plant the seed of faith. Second, you submit to the promptings of the Spirit. Third, you obey the commandments, turning that belief into tangible action. And fourth, you act with sincere care for others. It is through this step-by-step process that grace begins to incrementally change exactly who we are. So the crucial point is this: final judgment evaluates what we have become, not merely a sum total of our actions or some spreadsheet of our good deeds. Charity, kindness, and love, they are not just isolated acts we perform. They are a condition or a state of being we must achieve. We do what is right, but eventually we do it for the right reason, out of pure, unselfish love. And the beautiful result of this transformation is liberty. Look at this comparison. Manifesting good fruit like joy, peace, and kindness through righteous agency leads to ultimate freedom. On the flip side, chasing the works of the flesh and constantly putting on a false front leads directly to the entanglement and bondage of sin. When we live as Jesus taught, our lives become beautifully free and abundantly fruit-filled. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. What kind of harvest is your life producing right now? If someone were to closely examine the fruit of your daily habits, your quiet actions, and your inward character today, what would they find? Thank you for exploring this profound teaching with us in this explainer. Keep cultivating that good fruit, and we'll see you next time.